The silk is a lie. It is cold, smooth, and expensive, but it feels like a shroud. Every morning I step into this emerald skin, and every morning I feel the air leave my lungs. My name is Eleanor von Hagen, and I am the most beautiful trophy in Paris. They look at me across candlelit tables and see a masterpiece of the Third Republic. They see the pearls. They see the waves in my hair, frozen in place like a statue. They do not see the woman screaming behind the porcelain mask. My husband, the diplomat, speaks of me as if I am a piece of territory he conquered in a bloodless war. "Don't move, Eleanor," he says. "Don't speak, Eleanor. Just sparkle." And so, I sparkle. I wear the Tear of Versailles, a diamond so heavy it feels like a thumb pressing against my throat. It is the anchor that keeps me from floating away into the gray mist of the Seine. I am 26 years old, and I have already been buried alive in a mansion of marble and silence, until the rain started, and until she arrived. The old driver was a ghost, a man who never looked me in the eye, but the new one, the one they called Marcel, he didn't know the rules. He stood by the Delage limousine in a charcoal wool suit that looked too big for his frame, a flat cap pulled low over eyes that burned with a fire I hadn't seen in years. When he opened the door for me, he didn't bow. He smirked, a sharp, jagged expression that cut through the polite fog of my life. I noticed the scar first, a thin, pale line through the left eyebrow. It wasn't the mark of a servant. It was the mark of a fighter. I sat in the back, the leather scent of the car mingling with the smell of his cheap, hand-rolled cigarettes. "Where to, madame?" the voice said. It was husky, vibrating with a hidden frequency. Not a man's voice. Not quite. I caught those amber eyes in the mirror. They weren't looking at my pearls. They were looking at my soul. "Drive," I whispered. "Just drive until the city disappears." She didn't ask why. She just shifted the gear, the metal grinding with a violent, satisfying sound, and we tore away from the mansion like a bullet leaving a gun. For 3 days, she was a shadow, a silent, observant presence in the front seat. "Moi mouche Bill de Volin. The boy is efficient," he would say. "Quiet, disciplined. If only he knew. If only he saw the way she watched the security guards. If only he saw the way her fingers twitched whenever the safe in the study was opened. She wasn't a driver. She was a predator. And I was the bait. On the 4th night, the storm broke over Paris. The sky turned the color of a bruised plum. I was returning from a gala, my emerald dress soaked at the hem, my heart heavy with the boredom of 1,000 polite conversations. The Delage sputtered and died on a deserted stretch of road near the woods. The silence that followed was absolute. She got out. I watched through the rain-streaked glass as she popped the hood. The steam rose up like a ghost. I didn't stay inside. I stepped out into the mud, the silk of my dress clinging to my legs, the pearls cold against my skin. "Is it broken?" I asked. She turned. The cap was gone. Her hair, short, dark, and messy, was plastered to her forehead. The rain ran down the scar on her brow. She looked at me, really looked at me, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't Madame von Hagen. "The machine is fine," she said, her voice dropping the masculine facade. "It's the driver who stalled. Why aren't you running, Eleanor?" I froze. No one called me by my name, not with that bite. "I have nowhere to go," I replied. She stepped closer. She smelled of gasoline, rain, and rebellion. She reached out, her leather-gloved hand hovering near my face, before she pulled back. "Everyone has a place to go," she whispered. "Some of us just choose to steal the keys, instead of waiting for them to be handed over." In that moment, I knew she wasn't just a thief. She was a mirror. She was everything I was forbidden to be. "Who are you?" I breathed. She leaned in, her amber eyes flashing in the dark. "They call me the Phantom. and I'm here to take the only thing in this house that's actually worth something." I thought she meant the diamond. I reached for the clasp, my fingers trembling. "Take it then. Take it and go." She laughed, a low, dangerous sound that made my blood hum. She didn't touch the jewel. She took my hand instead. Her grip was firm, warm, and real. "I don't want the rock, Eleanor. I want the woman who's dying under the weight of it." The world tilted. The rain felt like a baptism. Behind us, the mansion waited, a tomb of gold and velvet. In front of us, the road stretched into the blackness, uncertain and terrifying. "Show me," I said. "Show me the Paris they don't want me to see." She climbed back into the driver's seat and held out her hand. "Buckle up, madame. It's going to be a very long night." We didn't go home. We went down into the basements of Montmartre, where the walls sweated and the air was thick with the scream of saxophones. We went where the light was red and the rules were broken. She led me through a door into a room filled with smoke and the ghosts of poets. Women in suits danced with women in feathers. Men with tired eyes sang of lost loves and revolution. No one looked at my emerald dress with judgment. They looked at me with recognition. Margot, she told me her real name as we sat in a corner booth, ordered a drink that tasted like fire and oranges. She watched me sip it, her eyes never leaving mine. "You're a masterpiece, Eleanor," she said, lighting a cigarette. "But masterpieces belong in museums, and museums are just fancy graveyards. You weren't made to be looked at. You were made to be felt." I reached across the table, my gloved fingers brushing the rough wool of her sleeve. "And you? Were you made to steal?" "I was made to survive," she said. "In my world, you either take what you need, or you starve. I've been hungry for a long time. For diamonds? For something real. Something that doesn't break when you drop it." The music swelled, a chaotic, beautiful mess of brass and drums. I felt the vibration in my bones. I felt the Tear of Versailles heavy on my chest, a cold reminder of the world I had left behind for a few hours. "He'll come for me," I said. "He owns the police. He owns the city." Margot leaned forward, the smoke from her cigarette curling between us like a secret. "He owns the cage, Eleanor, but he doesn't own the bird. Not if the bird learns how to fly in the dark." She stood up and held out her hand. "Dance with me." "I don't know how," I whispered. "There is no how," she said. "There's just the rhythm. Follow the beat of your own heart. It's been trying to tell you the tempo for years." I took her hand. We stepped onto the small, crowded floor. I didn't care about the silk. I only cared about the way her hand felt on my waist. We moved like two flames in a draft, flickering and bright. In that crowded, desperate room, I wasn't a trophy. I was a heartbeat. I was a breath. I was alive. The return to the mansion was a descent into a cold, airless tomb. The sun had not yet fully risen, but the gray light of dawn was already creeping over the manicured hedges, turning the white stone of the estate into a skeletal ribcage. Margot stopped the car at the service entrance. For a second, the engine's purr was the only thing connecting us to the world of jazz and smoke we had just left. I looked at her, my hand still resting on the leather seat, where hers had been moments before. The driver's cap was back on, the shadow of the brim hiding those amber eyes that had seen me stripped of my titles and my armor. She didn't look at me. She kept her gaze fixed on the rearview mirror, watching for the flick of a curtain or the heavy tread of a guard. "Go," she whispered, and the word felt like a physical push. "Put the mask back on, Eleanor, before the ghost of the diplomat catches the scent of the night on your skin." I stepped out, the emerald silk of my dress feeling heavy and damp, a second skin that didn't fit anymore. I walked through the servants' entrance, up the back stairs, and into my gilded bedroom just as the first real rays of light hit the gold leaf on the ceiling. I stood before the mirror and stared at the Tear of Versailles. The diamond was mocking me. It sparkled with a calculated, cold brilliance, indifferent to the heat that was still radiating from my chest. I unclasped it, and for a moment, the skin where it had rested felt bruised, as if the stone had been trying to claim me, to brand me as property. For the next 2 days, the house was a theater of war. My husband was preparing for the final gala, a grand display of power before his departure for Berlin. He paced the study, barking orders into the telephone, his voice a blunt instrument that flattened everything in its path. He looked at me during dinner and saw a statue. He didn't notice that the waves in my hair were slightly less perfect. He didn't notice that I had stopped wearing the emerald silk, opting instead for high collars that hid the pulse jumping in my neck. He saw the trophy, polished and ready for the shelf. But I was watching Margot. I watched her from the balcony. As she washed the Delage in the courtyard, I watched the way she moved, with a coiled animal grace that no chauffeur should possess. She was mapping the house. I saw her eyes linger on the balcony railings, on the height of the garden walls, on the rotation of the night watchman. She was a thief, and she was doing her job, but every so often she would tilt her head, just a fraction, as if she could feel my gaze through the stone and glass. She was the only person in the world who knew I was alive, and that knowledge was a thread pulled taut between us, vibrating with every breath I took. On the eve of the ball, the tension in the house was a physical weight. The caterers were moving through the halls like ants, draped in white linen. The smell of lilies, too many lilies, filled the air, cloying and sweet, like a funeral for a woman who hadn't died yet. I found Margot in the garage, late at night. She was leaning against the workbench, a set of lockpicks spread out before her like surgical instruments. She didn't startle when I entered. She just picked up a small tension wrench and spun it between her fingers. "The safe is a chub," she said, her voice a low vibration in the darkness. "Old, sturdy, but predictable, like your husband. It takes exactly 3 minutes to breathe through the tumblers." I stepped closer, the shadows of the garage swallowing us. "And then what, Margot? You take the stone, you jump the wall, and you disappear into the mist. Is that the end of the song?" She looked up then, her eyes hard and bright. "That's the job, Eleanor. I'm a ghost. I don't leave footprints, and I don't leave notes. I take what's shiny, and I move to the next city. Is that all I am to you? A map to a diamond?" The question hung in the air, sharp and desperate. Margot stood up, moving into my space until I could smell the faint metallic tang of the tools and the scent of the rain that always seemed to follow her. She reached out, her thumb brushing the line of my jaw, a gesture so tender it made my lungs ache. "You're the only thing I've ever wanted to keep," she whispered, "and that makes you the most dangerous thing in this house. A thief who wants to keep something is a thief who gets caught." "Then let them catch us," I breathed. She pulled back, a bitter laugh catching in her throat. "You don't know what you're asking. You've lived in silk your whole life. My world is grit. It's cold rooms, false names, and the sound of boots on the pavement behind you. You wouldn't last a week in the ash, Eleanor." I grabbed her hand, forcing her to feel the heat of my palm. "I'm already in the ash. I've been burning in this house for 6 years. I'd rather starve with you than feast with a ghost." She stared at me, the conflict playing out behind those amber eyes. For a moment, the thief was gone, and there was only Margot, raw, hungry, and terrified of the very thing she had spent her life stealing, a connection. "The ball starts at 8, she said, her voice turning clinical again, a shield against the emotion. "The tear will be on your neck. After the midnight toast, your husband will take you to the study to lock it away before the journey. That is when I move. I'll be in the shadows of the garden. If the light in the study blinks twice, I'll know the safe is open. And then, I asked. Margot leaned in, her lips brushing my ear, sending a shiver through me that had nothing to do with the cold. And then, Eleanor, you have to decide if you're a trophy or a bird, because once that diamond is gone, there is no going back. He will hunt the thief, and he will destroy the wife who let her in. She turned away, gathering her tools in a single, fluid motion. Go back to your lilies, madame. The masquerade is about to begin. I walked back to the house, my heart a drum in the silence of the night. The plan was set. The diamond was the key, but not for its value. It was the weight that had to be dropped to make the balloon rise. I lay in my bed, watching the shadows of the trees dance on the walls like ink spills. I thought of the Tear of Versailles. How many women had it adorned? How many had it stifled? It was a stone born of the earth's pressure, and it had spent centuries exerting that same pressure on the necks of the beautiful and the bored. Tomorrow, that pressure would break. Tomorrow, the silk would burn. Tomorrow, I would find out if the ash was cold, or if it was the only thing that could finally make me feel warm. The night of the masquerade arrived like a funeral dressed in sequins. The mansion was a hive of forced laughter and clinking crystal, a hollow symphony for a world rotting from within. I stood at the top of the grand staircase, my emerald silk replaced by a gown of shimmering silver, cold as moonlight. The Tear of Versailles sat heavy against my collarbone, a frozen drop of history that felt like a parasite, draining the warmth from my skin. My husband, the diplomat, stood beside me, his hand a proprietary weight on my elbow. He wore the mask of a golden lion, regal and immovable. I wore the mask of a white swan, hiding the fever burning in my eyes. Smile, Eleanor, he hissed. The eyes of Europe are on us. Don't let them see the cracks. I smiled, a jagged thing that felt like a cut. Somewhere in the chaos of feathers and lace, Margot was moving. She wasn't a guest. She was the wind between the pillars, the shadow the guards ignored. I felt her presence like a hum in my teeth. She was the only real thing in a room full of ghosts. The music was a frantic waltz, a spinning madness that made the chandeliers tremble. I danced with ambassadors and counts, their hands dry and demanding on my waist. Every touch was a reminder of what I was, property to be traded, but my mind was in the garden, thinking of the Delage limousine, its engine primed and waiting for two women with nothing left to lose but their chains. Midnight approached, a guillotine blade hanging over the festivities. The diplomat raised his glass to a future that felt like a prison cell. "To my beautiful wife," he boomed, "the jewel of my collection." The room erupted in applause, a sound like dry leaves skittering over a grave. He leaned in, his lion mask pressing against my swan. "It's time, Eleanor. Let us put the tear to rest." He led me through the silent wing of the mansion to his study, a room smelling of old paper and signed away lives. He swung aside a painting to reveal the safe, the chub, the 3-minute lock. I stood by the heavy velvet curtains, my heart a drum. I reached for the lamp. 1 flick, 2 flicks, a signal to the darkness outside. "What are you doing?" he asked, his voice sharp as a razor. He hadn't started the combination yet. "The light was flickering," I said, my voice steady, though my blood was ice. He grunted, turning back to the safe. 1, 2, 3. The heavy door groaned open. He reached for my neck, his fingers fumbling with the clasp. As the diamond came free, the weight left me, and I felt light enough to float. He held the stone up to the light. "Beautiful," he whispered, and so very silent. Suddenly, the French doors creaked. A draft of cold air rushed in, extinguishing the candles. A shadow detached itself from the curtains. Margot didn't wear a mask. Her face was a weapon. She held a small, blackened pistol pointed at the lion's heart. "Step away from the stone," she said, her voice a low, melodic threat. The diplomat froze. The diamond clutched in his fist. Realization hit him like a blow. "The driver," he spat. "I should have known. A stray dog always bites the hand that feeds it." "You didn't feed me," Margot said, stepping into the moonlight. "You just let me watch the cage. And I've decided to open the door." She shifted her eyes to me. "Eleanor, now." I didn't hesitate. I grabbed the heavy bronze bust from the desk and swung it with the rage I had stored for 6 years. It connected with his shoulder, sending him stumbling. The diamond slipped from his hand, skittering across the floor like common glass. Margot was on him in an instant, a blur of gray wool. She used the butt of the gun, a precise strike that sent the lion to the floor. Silent and broken, the Tear of Versailles lay between us, glowing in the dark. Margot picked it up. "This is your life, Eleanor," she said. "Your name, your future. If we take this, we are hunted. If we leave it, you are just a kidnapped wife." I looked at the stone. I saw the centuries of women who had worn it as a collar. I took it from her hand and threw it into the dying embers of the hearth. "I don't want a future built on his gold," I whispered. "I want a life built on your ash." Margot's mouth parted in shock. Then a dangerous smile spread across her face. She grabbed my hand, her grip bruising and perfect. "Then let's move, Eleanor. The ghosts are waking up." We ran through the garden, the silver of my dress tearing on rose bushes. The Delage was waiting, its engine a low growl in the mist. I didn't look back at the tomb. I only looked for the road. The engine of the Delage screamed as Margot threw it into gear, the tires spitting gravel against the manicured silence of the estate. Behind us, the mansion was already shrinking, its lit windows looking like the dying eyes of a prehistoric beast. I sat in the front seat now, the silver silk of my gown shredded at the knees, my breath coming in jagged electric bursts. I looked at my hands. They were shaking, not with fear, but with the sudden, violent influx of reality. The Tear of Versailles was melting in the embers of a fireplace, and with it, the woman I was supposed to be had turned to smoke. "Don't look back," Margot commanded, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. Her cap was gone, her short hair whipping in the wind that rushed through the open window. "The moment you look back, the cage starts to rebuild itself. Keep your eyes on the horizon." I did as she said. I watched the black silhouettes of the Parisian outskirts blur into a smear of shadow and light. We weren't just driving. We were tearing a hole in the fabric of the world. The road to the coast was a ribbon of moonlight and uncertainty. Every pair of headlights in the distance felt like a predator, every shadow a trap. "He won't just let us go," I whispered, the adrenaline beginning to dip into a cold, sharp dread. "He has the law. He has the money." Margot leaned into a sharp curve, the car tilting precariously. "He has a reputation to protect, Eleanor. A diplomat whose wife ran off with the chauffeur and burned the crown jewel? He'll hide the truth for as long as he can to save his own neck. By the time he's ready to admit he's been outplayed, we'll be ghosts on a different shore." We reached the docks of Le Havre, just as the sky began to bleed a pale, bruised violet. The salt air hit my face, sharp and cold, tasting of salt and metal. The steamer for England was a massive, soot-stained shadow, huffing steam into the mist. Margot pulled the car into a dark alleyway behind a warehouse. She killed the engine, and the sudden silence was deafening. We sat there for a moment, the heat of the motor ticking in the cold air. "This is it," she said, turning to look at me. The amber in her eyes was tempered by a weary, profound softness. "Once we step on that boat, Eleanor von Hagen ceases to exist. There is no emerald silk where we're going. There are no servants, just the ash and the long road." I reached out, my fingers tracing the scar on her brow, then moving down to cup her face. Eleanor was a ghost, I said. She died in that study. I don't know who I am yet, Margot, but I know who I want to be seen by. She pulled a worn leather satchel from under the seat, the tools of her trade, and a stack of forged papers she'd been preparing since the night we met. She handed me a passport. The name inside was simple, unadorned, a blank slate. I didn't just plan to steal the diamond, did I? I asked, a small, knowing smile touching my lips. Margot leaned in, her forehead resting against mine. I've been a thief my whole life, Eleanor. I know a treasure when I see one. And I knew the moment I saw you in that rearview mirror that I wasn't leaving Paris without the real prize. We walked toward the gangplank, 2 figures in the mist. I wore Margot's oversized wool coat over my torn silver gown, a strange armor for a new life. As the ship's horn let out a low, mournful blast, I felt a weight lift from my soul that no diamond could ever match. We stood at the railing as the ship pulled away, watching the lights of France flicker and fade into the fog. The Tear of Versailles was gone, but as Margot reached into her pocket and pulled out a single hand-rolled cigarette, lighting it and sharing the first breath of smoke with me, I realized I had never felt richer. The taste of the smoke was bitter and sharp, the taste of ash, the taste of fire, the taste of being free. We weren't going to a palace. We were going into the unknown, with nothing but each other, and the clothes on our backs. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't a trophy. I was the one holding the keys. The sun broke over the Atlantic, a thin line of gold that didn't feel like a cage. It felt like a beginning. Margot put her arm around my waist, pulling me close against the biting sea wind. "Where to now, madame?" she asked, the old smirk returning to her lips. But this time, it was filled with light. I looked out at the vast, open water, the gray mist parting to reveal a world that was finally mine to walk in. "Drive," I whispered, leaning my head against her shoulder. "Just drive until the city disappears."